there's something else you pointed to that's of unbelievably critical importance, and people don't understand this at all, although Adam Smith understood it. Now, we have this idea that one of the main sources of our wealth is natural resource. And I don't even like the concept of natural resource. I think it's a disguised form of Marxist presumption that wealth is just laying around for the taking, and that some people get to the wealth first and that's how they get rich. It's like Japan doesn't have any natural resources and it's rich. And there's also a phenomena that you know about, I imagine, called the resource curse, which is the repeated empirical observation that there's, if anything, a slight negative correlation between national prosperity and the presence of natural resources. Well, why? Well, easy money corrupts. That's one reason. But there's a deeper reason. The deeper reason is the only natural resource is trust. And trust is dependent on honesty. And the reason that trust is the only natural resource is because if I can take you at your word, we can cooperate. And I don't have to worry about the snakes in your head. All I have to know is you'll do what you said you'll do. That means we can make a contract. Not only that, we can make one that we'll both understand it and we'll both keep it. And that means that we can cooperate. And if everyone's like that, then everyone can cooperate or even compete fairly. And if everyone can cooperate and compete, then every desert can bloom. And Japan is a great example of that. And so, Venezuela and Argentina, great counterexamples.
The Congo. Yeah, I mean, I think that picture that you're describing is the same one that Harvey Mansfield lays out in his wonderful book, Manliness, where he has 3 levels of masculinity. The first is weak men who are incapable of defending themselves and others. Manly men who are strong men who look down on the weak men, but will also abuse their power. And then the gentleman who has the power of the manly man, but keeps it in reserve to protect his family, his bride, his children, his family, his nation, civilization, but he's not going to abuse his power. So we've seen a regression where civilization was created by gentlemen, as you said. They became gentlemen. In the process of creating civilization, they become gentlemen, or in the process of becoming gentlemen, they create civilization, which is to say a society based on universal rules, on the view of humans as all equal under first God and then equal under the law, and that everybody has these fundamental inalienable human rights. This is the basis of what we call Western civilization, and it's a civilization of gentlemen. Well, we've seen a mass derangement, over the last 12 years, but particularly with the election of Trump, you saw a derangement occurring in every institution. And what happens with USAID and within the intelligence communities and the foreign policy establishment is a massive derangement and abuse of power where the gentlemen stop being gentlemen, they become aggressive manly men, and they decide that they know what's best. And they can't stand all this democracy, which they call they dismiss as populism, and they describe populism as its opposite. They project onto populism totalitarianism, and in the name of preventing totalitarianism, create a censorship industrial complex, which was already we know was international. U.S., U.K., U.S., Brazil, U.S., Europe, Canada, involved in it, particularly the Five Eyes, all coming out of the intelligence community because they're the ones that had run the censorship and disinformation operations, again, in Arab Spring and then the color revolutions. They turn all that back on the United States, first with the Russiagate conspiracy theory, this idea that Trump is secretly controlled through a sex blackmail operation by Putin. Second, through the dismissal of COVID origins. Then you see it with the Hunter Biden laptop, an elaborate conspiracy theory that the laptop is a Russian information operation as opposed to which they knew it was not because the FBI had the laptop 7 months earlier and used basically Jedi mind trick brainwashing to pre-bunk or program the journalists and the social media companies into thinking that a future story about Hunter Biden and Burisma would be a Russian hack and leak operation. and spreading disinformation in advance, programming people, and then demanding censorship on the basis of it. And I think we're going to find out a lot more about January 6th as well, as a kind of construction rather than something organic. A clear decision was made at a minimum to not provide adequate security. We know that for sure because the Capitol Police Chief has written a whole book on it. And so you look at that series of events, and you also look at what the U.S. security state had done in places like Brazil and the Philippines and other parts of the world. And of course, this goes back decades. And it's a clear counter-populist effort run by these deep state organizations, run by people who had lost their minds, who have all the rational abilities, but they had Trump derangement syndrome and turned their enormous powers, their incredible psychological, sociological, political, technological powers against their own people to undermine democracy and attack free speech.